Now tell me a little bit about the sort of Indo-European invasion, shall we say, into the Indus Valley. And what then happened to the Dravidians, who were the Africoid people, who were there, the original inhabitants, and they ended up as the Dalits, I think, etc., etc. Because clearly there's that conquest. And I think this is important because there are these original civilizations, and I want us to get later on to the spirituality or the religiosity of these people, because I think there's a commonality there in terms of the original civilizations. But then there's this Indo-European invasion throughout the Middle East that takes place and transforms that whole area.
Yeah, this is what it is. There's a body of literature that the Hindus have called the Rig Veda. Mm-hmm. And according to the Cambridge history of India, the main theme of the Rig Veda is the overthrow of the black skin by the conquering Aryans. Now, what happens is there's a lot of Hindu nationalists who have tried to deny this, because if they accept this, then they would have to accept that the invasion of India is a reality, and their languages, the Sanskrit-based languages, are related to European languages. They would have to accept that. They don't want to accept that. They say that this view is a European incursion. Do you see? They want to say that the idea that there was an Aryan conquest of India was something made up by white people. And they want to say that the white person who made that up was Professor Max Muller. And Max Muller was a 19th century scholar. They also want to blame 20th century scholars who popularized what Max Muller was teaching. And they want to say that it's all a fake. Here's the problem with the it's all a fake theory. You still have to explain why is it that the Sanskrit languages are related to European. You see, you can't get around that. Do you see? Let me give you an example. One of the names that the Dravidians were called by their conquerors is Anasa, which means noseless. And you can break it down, meaning without, Nasa, nose. Nasa would then be nasal. Do you see? And even though neither of us can speak Sanskrit, we can work that out. And the fact that you can do that with Sanskrit-based languages shows that they are actually related to European languages. And therefore, the Sanskrit people are related to European people. And therefore, they really are conquerors. And it plays out in politics as well. You'll notice that, in the country where I'm in right now, Britain, the European elite are quite friendly to, Hindus being in very high positions of political power, Sikhs being in very high positions of political power, and everyone's cool with it. And why they're cool with it is because they know at a deep level they're actually related. You see, yeah? All right, now what happened to the Dravidians? Well, what happened is they were forced out of the the Indus Valley into central and southern India, where they became the tribals. And then the ones that were accepted into the caste system were accepted in, but at the bottom. So they become the Sudras, which represent the feet of Brahma. Why the feet? That way you're walked on. Does that make sense? Yeah. And as everybody knows, India has got, issues of colorism and shadism galore. You look in an Indian newspaper, everyone's trying to marry people who are wheat complexioned. And what they mean by wheat complexioned is the ones that are the closest to what the Aryans would have looked like back in the day. Now, of course, the lightest skinned Aryan has got Dravidian in them. So they're all variations of complexions, but the worship of, all you need to do is watch Bollywood films and you can see the worship of light skin to this very day. Or watch an Indian beauty competition and all the competitors have been color shaded to make sure they're as light and as European or Greek looking as possible. All right, now what's happened is due to the brilliant work of the late Dr. Runoko Rashidi, he has done a lot of work in India and has done a lot of work to hook the Dravidian intellectuals and their history and hook it up and get them to see it as part of Black history generally. And he's had some success, you know. Now, of course, the Hindu historians hate Rashidi. And if you go online and you read articles where they'll call him a fraud historian, no, he's not the fraud, you are.
Greetings, my name is Robin Walker. I'm also known as the Black History Man. I am perhaps best known for my 2006 book, When We Ruled. Based on this book, I'm launching a new online history course aimed at you, the adults. You could be a parent, you could be a teacher, a mechanic, cleaner, professionals, care workers, security guards, taxi drivers, kitchen workers, entrepreneurs, tech heads, lawyers, all of you. We want people from all over the world to be empowered by our content. We want you to gain mastery over your history and heritage. And you can do this by subscribing to our course. Click on the link to get this powerful, life-changing material.
It's something that I also I think is a bit of a puzzle. Is you know, India is a very religious place, and a lot of people seem to think that, you know, Eastern religion somehow came out of India, shall we say, bearing in mind that, you know, no religion has really come out of Europe, and the invaders of India are from Europe. Where did the religion come from?
This is what it is.
The Hindu religion. You know, there's the Sankofa philosophy, there's Vedanta, and you know, Krishna. I know Krishna is black. Krishna means black, and you know, Krishna and Arjuna, and Krishna is telling Arjuna what to do, etc., etc. But it's like the fact that Krishna is black is somehow whitewashed, if you will, or not made relevant. So again, we seem to have a cover-up.
Yeah, this is what it is. The original religion of India, or the Indus Valley, would have been the worship of deities like Shiva, Vishnu, Sattva, and so on. And these deities are usually shown as male-female pairs, right? What then happened is with the Aryan invasion, they took some of these deities and changed them around in Hindu form. So in other words, the Hindus didn't necessarily bring a new religion. What they did was pervert the religion that was already there. And they then combined it with a colorism and a shadism, which is the precursor for what we would today call apartheid. They had that going on from somewhere around 1500 BC. And now, it's the longest lasting apartheid system. And this is important for you young heads learning history. There's this view held by Marxists that racism is the product of capitalism, is the product of slavery, and is therefore 500 years old. Total rubbish. Racism in its modern form is 3,500 years old. And what the Hindus did with the caste system. So what the caste system did was divide everybody up into 4 groups. You have your Brahmins, your Kshatriyas, your Vaishyas, and your Sudras. Your Sudras are the people at the bottom because they become the feet of Brahma. And then you've got the people that they've thrown out of the system. Sometimes they're called untouchables, sometimes they're called outcasts. And essentially what it does is keeps the dark-skinned folks at the bottom, the light-skinned folks at the top, restricts the job opportunities of the dark-skinned folks. And that is essentially how it went down. Now, what then happened is when Buddhism came on the scene, Buddhism preached against the caste system. So Buddha, in some ways, could be seen as a revolutionary. He was the Martin Luther King, preaching against the caste system. And so what the Hindus did was to kick the Buddhists out of India and kick them into Sri Lanka. And then Buddhist disciples ended up spreading Buddhism into the Far East. Does that make sense? And Buddhism is an anti-caste religion. So Buddha was a revolutionary.
And
now,
the early statues of Buddha are of, my features and curly hair.
yeah,
Of course, the statues in China have, Mongolian features, but they still have the tradition of the curly hair, the aesthetic.
yeah.
I think he was an African person, if you will.
I wouldn't use the term African. I'll tell you why I wouldn't use the term African. I would use the term Black. Let me tell you why.
Okay, I understand. But go ahead, explain, please.
Yeah, this is where I disagree with the late Dr. Rashidi, because Rashidi would teach that all these people are Africans. I don't teach that.
Mm-hmm.
All these people are Black. Let me tell you why I don't say Africans.
As a thank you for visiting our website, we are giving you a free copy of our exclusive 100 Black History Facts, which is in fact a taster of our course content. Make sure you leave your email address and we will send it right to you. We hope it inspires you to dig deeper into your history and heritage.
Think about what would happen if there's a consciousness, a Black consciousness spreading among the Dravidians. Would they be fighting for Africa, or would they be fighting to get rid of Hindu power over them? Which one? They'd be fighting to get rid of Hindu power. Now, if you say, but you guys aren't even Indians, you're Africans, the Hindus would say, yep, we agree, they're Africans, therefore they deserve to have no power here. And you, by calling them Africans, you've undermined their nationalism. Do you see? Same thing, if there was a Black consciousness that spread among the Elamites and their descendants, or among the Marsh Arabs and their descendants, and someone says, but you guys are Africans, the Iraqi and Iranian government would agree and say, yep, they're Africans, therefore they don't deserve any power here. Do you see? Whereas I prefer to call them the original Iraqi, the original Iranian, the original Indian. So that makes it clear that land is theirs. Yeah? Now, as Africans, they're our brothers, and we support them, and we hope that they support us. So we're brothers, but that's why I prefer to call them Black, not African. Do you see?
Yes, I see your point, and definitely I'd say I agree. I think as we follow, shall we say, the early migration east, we see the Black man at the beginning of all civilizations. For example, as you go further east into places like Cambodia, etc., the Khmers, as you go into China, the Shang Dynasty, as you go into Japan, the Ainu, and Australia. Can you take us on that journey? To some degree, clarify it for us on the time frame.
I don't know enough about the Far East to go there. And I don't think that we Black scholars have done enough research to go. Now, I've certainly seen books on ancient China, and they definitely talk about an oceanic Negroid presence. They definitely say that, because I've got the books that say it. Can we link this oceanic Negroid presence to the Shang dynasty? Possibly, but I would want to see a hell of a lot of studies before we go there. I work on this principle that when we deal with our history, it has to stand up in court. Imagine you've got the most anti-Black prosecutor coming against you, and you've got to be able to defend it. And with the Shang dynasty in China, I don't think our scholarship we've got enough to deal with that yet. Same thing, what's in Cambodia? I've seen some of those artifacts and some of them are really interesting.
Angkor Wat?
Huh?
Angkor
Yeah,
Wat.
the same thing. If we're going to say that Black people built that, we better come with evidence, you see. And again, I'm not sure about that. So I don't go there yet. I think that's an area where Black scholars need to do a lot more research. Then we've also got things like the scholars talk about the Australo-Melanesians. And what they do is they mix up the indigenous Australians with the indigenous Melanesians, with the indigenous Micronesians, with the indigenous Polynesians. Why? Because they have an ancient shipping tradition. These people have been sailing ships for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Why mix them up? So that way you can credit the Polynesians with it, do you see? And what we need to be able to do as scholars is to disentangle the Polynesians from the rest, because the rest were definitely Black. Yeah. So we work out how much of that history is ours. And so what I would suggest is we need to do a lot more research. So basically, once we go further east than the Indus, I would suggest that that's an area that we need to really dig into the history, dig into the physical anthropology, and make sure that everything we say we can prove.
I certainly agree. There's, I know that in China, there's some DNA evidence. I saw something recently in terms of DNA studies with the Chinese, and they were able to trace it back, to African origins.
That's true. That's
anywhere
true.
else. And
true.
Also, the Japanese have recognized the Ainu as the original indigenous population. So again, I think there's some evidence there. But I agree with you that scholarship is needed in terms of fleshing it out, so that we do have more evidence that we can stand on.